everybody, and welcome back to another video on my channel. It is Kevin here, and today we are going to talk about something that plagues quite a few beta writers. Today's video we're talking about 10 tips to help you get through the query trenches. Yeah. And today's video is not just a regular old video with just regular old me. Today's video is a collaboration. I almost said sponsor. Lindsay Puckett, you want to sponsor me? I'll take the money. Lindsay Puckett and I have decided to do a collaboration together talking about querying and some tips to help you get through it, because coming from my side where I've already gone through it and her side where she's currently in it, we just felt like we could impart some knowledge, hopefully. At least things that work for us that maybe will work for you and help you get through, because if you want to be traditionally published and you have to go through the querying trenches, and the querying trenches, man, they can get you. They can get you. Without babbling too much, I'm gonna go ahead and start talking about my tips for this, and then after I'm done, Lindsay's linked below, and I want you to go ahead and watch her little video, comment on her video, subscribe to her if you haven't already. If you haven't, where have you been with your life? Lindsay Puckett is amazing, so go subscribe to Lindsay if you haven't already. But let's get started on my tips. Why do I always say let's get started like I'm Rosanna Pansino? Oh, I just realized you're very crooked. Excuse the crookedness. My first tip is gonna be one that you've probably heard a million times, but it is a tried and true method that will help you get through this, and that is to start a new project. I can't tell you how much this really came in handy for me, because when I was querying the Hunter book. And this was years ago now, about 4 years ago. And when I was querying it, I was getting a lot of attention from DV Pit at the time. I sent it to like, I don't remember how many agents, but you know, there was like a handful of agents that had the full, and I was like freaking out. And I thought, okay, well, I need something to distract me. So that's when I started working on the Jack book. And at the time I was living with my sister, Laura writes, and I would do like these sprints where I would work on this book, and it really helped me not even think about the fact that that book was being read by agents. Like, it was always constantly, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It was something that was always in the back of my mind. I was always kind of thinking about it, and there were times when it like kind of reared its head, but working on another project really helped me take that creativity and this bubbly anxiety-ness and channel it into something productive to get something done. And that really helped me get through not thinking about that book, the Hunter book, when it was on query. And to be honest, if I'm being really honest, this is something I'm dealing with now on submission, is that like a little insider tip, I guess, for submission also, is while my agent is submitting my books to editors, I also work on a new project to help me focus my energy and my mind on a new project, which is what I'm doing right now. Honestly, if you had not tried it, don't sit around thinking about the only thing. And also, I don't want to be the doom and gloom here either, but statistically speaking, I don't know what's the actual statistic, but lots of people don't get signed on their first book. That's just the reality of it. So, you know, don't just keep working. Keep writing on a new book, because it may not be this book, but it could be the next one. So my number 2 is to have a good support system. I actually recommend having at least 2 people if possible. One who is also a fellow writer, so they'll understand where you're coming from. For instance, my sister Laura or my boyfriend Damien are both writers, so these are things that I can talk about with them, but I can complain. I can say like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's taking so long. Publishing takes forever. I can say like, oh, I'm, you know, this or that or this about querying or submission, and they understand where I'm coming from. They understand, you know, sometimes they've been in that same situation, so it is a universal pain that we feel. My other suggestion is to then get someone who knows nothing about publishing, who's maybe not even a writer, maybe a parent or a sibling or an animal. I have complained to Alfalfa many a times, and just talk about it. They don't even have to like say anything or give you a response, but sometimes having someone that's completely divorced from the situation, has no idea what's going on, has no input at all, has no little like advice, or, and this is not a call out to anyone, but Laura and Damien give me advice sometimes. I'm just like, let me just vent, you know? And so you really want someone that's just gonna listen. But there's also a tip, there's a caveat to this, a tip to the telling people. And that tip, you'll have to go watch Lindsay's video to find out what it is. Go watch Lindsay's video. Why is my forehead so itchy? My forehead's itchy, which means if I don't stop itching it, it's gonna turn red. Number 3 is something that is very difficult, but it's something that I think really helped me. And it is not to constantly refresh your email inbox, because everyone knows this, publishing is notoriously slow. This isn't just publishers, this is agents, this is, you know, beta readers. Every level of publishing is notoriously slow. If you sit around refreshing your inbox, this is me refreshing it on my phone. I just realized that if you only refresh on a computer, this makes no sense. If you just sit around refreshing, it is going to drive you bonkers. And I mean that coming from that spot. In fact, I still struggle with this. This is something I still struggle with even at the submission level when I send stuff to beta readers, when I send stuff to my agent to read. I'm a constant refresher and I have to distract myself because constantly refreshing your inbox, waiting for that thing to appear is just going to get to you. It's going to get under your skin. Being impatient is not really an option in traditional publishing because, like I said, everything does take forever. And so I think not refreshing your inbox will also help you to learn a little bit of patience. I think that the constant refresh can then lead to an unrealistic expectation of like, why haven't I gotten it yet? Why haven't I gotten it yet? Why haven't I gotten it yet? Because you know what? You may have checked your inbox 9 million times, but it's only been one day. So you might be like, why 9 million refreshes? Is there nothing in my inbox? Well, gotta take a couple days off, you know? And when I say a couple days, I mean longer than that. And this goes back to the last tip here, because if you have someone to vent to, you have a support system, whether that is a writer or a non-writer, and there are also support systems online. I forgot to say that, so let's backtrack a little bit. You can find people on like Absolute Write or the NaNoWriMo forums or writing groups in person or online. There's tons of places for you to find a support group. In fact, I know a lot of people that used to before COVID, go to in-person writing groups, and that was their support system. They all got to talk about being on sub together. Or if you join something like Author Mentor Match, that can really help you in help you get that community. I don't know why I'm always talking with my hand, but like I said, not refreshing your inbox can tie back to that, because if you have someone to talk to about it, you may spend that time that you would just be refreshing. You know, you lost your 5 lives in Candy Crush, which is a forever struggle, and now you're like, what do I do? Well, I'm gonna refresh my inbox about 17 more times in the next 10 minutes. Like I said, something I still struggle with, to be honest. I don't know if it ever goes away, but try your hardest to not obsessively refresh your inbox. My next one is something that really helped me when I was querying, and something that still helps me to this day on later stages, and that is to find a hobby outside of writing. Now, I know that some people have one hobby that they're very, 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 very into, and it's all they do all the time. And I think that's fine. However, when you're going into a creative field, especially one like publishing, where there is a lot of waiting, there is a lot of impatientness. That's not a word. Impatience? A lot of times we're gonna have to be patient. It's good to have a hobby that will not remind you of the fact that things are going so slow. For instance, when I was first in the query trenches, I started baking a lot. I was making monster cookies, homemade rolls, pies, whatever. And it really helped me to focus my creative energy on something else. And I think that it doesn't even necessarily have to be creative energy. I also play video games when I'm trying to ignore the fact that I, haven't sold 1 million books yet. I will take that time in my head, and instead of focusing on thinking about that, I will play video games, I'll bake, I'll do art stuff. Having hobbies that can, in a way, distract you is great. And I'm not saying that you should ignore writing for months and months and months and never write and just pick up a new hobby. I'm not saying that. And I think that some people may disagree with me, because some people may say like, well, you might say like, oh, well, it kind of contradicts the first tip to work on a new project. But I think that you should be doing all these things simultaneously if possible, because that's what I was doing. I was venting to people, but at the same time, I was working on a new project. But when I wasn't writing, I was doing other hobbies. And I think that it really helps to have a hobby, something that you can invest your time and energy into, that, like I said, is not going to remind you of the fact that you're querying and that there's agents reading your fulls, your partials. It's really going to help you in the long run. And I implore that you look for a hobby outside of writing. It can be reading too. It could be Netflix binging. I mean, when I say hobby, I mean, I've said this very loosely, because anything can be really hobby if you love it and put time and energy into it. Last but not least, and in fact, this is something that I have to remind myself all the time. My agent has to remind me of it. Damien has to remind me of it. Everyone that I know that is a writer has to remind me of it. And it's something that I want to impart on you, because it's something that's very easily forgotten. And it's really hard to see this when you're stuck in the query trenches, the submission trenches, whatever, wherever you're at. It's really hard to see. And it is that writing is very subjective. If you think about it, I have read my book, some of my books, like 20 times, not even exaggerating. An agent then has to read, like the Witch book, for instance. My agent hasn't even had the latest version. We're not even to the about to go on submission, and she's already read it like half a dozen times. So an agent really has to love your writing. That's the thing though. And same thing with editors. But that's the thing though, is that writing is really subjective, but it only takes one yes. It only takes one person to say, yes, I want this book. Yes, I want to publish this book. There's a little bit more nuance that comes to it when it comes to like the editorial board and stuff like that, which is something I can talk about in a video later if you're interested. But it only takes one yes. And every day that you don't hear back, or you might get a no, you might like start thinking worse and worse about yourself or your writing, or just think like, why am I bothering? Which is something I struggle with. I am someone that suffers from depression. So these are thoughts that come to my head, like, why do I bother? Then I remember that Rena said yes, and that like changed my life. That completely put it on a different course. And it really reminded me that all it takes is an editor to say yes. So like, yeah, I've gotten lots of rejections from editors. I'm very open about that. It's something that I want to make a video about, is that I've gotten lots of no's. I've been to editorial board and I've gotten a no there. And all it takes is one yes. It'll happen. It just might take longer than you want, but it'll happen. It will. It will. Trust me. I just hate to think that people get discouraged because they feel like they're not good enough. When really, think about how many books you've read in your life. And if you say you haven't read any, then please, I implore you to start reading, because you cannot be a writer unless you're a reader. But think about how many books you've read in your life, and how many have you absolutely loved out of the probably hundreds or thousands of books you've read. How many of you absolutely loved that you'd read over and over and over again? Now think about how many books you've read in your life that you liked, but you know, you wouldn't reach for it to reread it probably ever. And then think about, what's a book you read that you just like, whatever. You know, I would never even think about it again. That's not even including the ones that you didn't like. And editors and agents and beta readers, they're all the same. They're all humans. So there are books they'll read that they'll probably never think about again. There are books that they'll read that they'll think about, but like, you know, they're never gonna read it. They're never gonna reach for a reread. And then there's books that they absolutely love, and those are the books that they buy. So think about it like that. When you're feeling down, just think like, someone is going to read my book and they are going to love it, and they're going to want to reread it. They're going to want to reach out, and they're going to want to help me make it better. And it'll change their lives. It really will. And it'll change your life when they choose it. And this is something else that's not really a tip, but I guess adding on to the writing is subject, I don't know. It only takes one person to change another person's life, and it could be your book with a reader. So if you give up, you could fundamentally change that person's life by not changing it. Does that make sense to you? Or am I making sense? Do you understand where I'm coming from? Because I remember the books that I read as a kid that really changed me. It makes me sad to think like, what if they had given up because they got 50 no's and they were like, well, I'm out. I'm done writing. It makes me sad to think that like I could have never read those books. Like some of my favorite books could have never existed. So keep persevering. Keep your head up. I know this sucks. I know this sucks so hard. Querying sucks so much. So does submission. There are other levels that publishing that suck. A lot of it sucks, to be honest, but it's just, you know, it's the field we chose to go into. Yeah. So those are my 5 tips for how to get through. And is this video titled a little clickbaity? Maybe, but guess what? There are 5 other tips. To watch those 5 tips, you must click on Lindsay's video link below and go watch her 5 tips. Now, before you go ahead and comment below, do any of these tips work for you when you're in the query trenches or submission trenches or any kind of trench in publishing, whether that's indie publishing or traditional publishing? Do any of these things ever help you? If not, what are some things that do help you? Go ahead and comment below and make sure you're looking through the comments, and maybe you'll get some ideas there of ways that can help you get through times when you just want to be like, because I'm like that a lot with publishing. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely be reading all the comments below because I would like some suggestions of your guys's to help me get through the submission trenches. Go ahead and comment below what yours are and which ones help you. And now hit the like button below, hit the subscribe button below, and then click Lindsay's video link below and go watch Lindsay's because she's a lovely human being. And I just realized I don't have any greenery in the back. She's gonna be so ashamed of me. You're all lovely people and I love you, and go watch Lindsay's video. Bye!
If you want more of Kevin, click here. This video is pretty cool too. If you loved it, hit the subscribe button. What are you still doing here? Go write already.